Greetings, greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house, going live and direct. How you doing? I certainly hope all is fine with you and that you've risen in power, that you rose in strength today, and that you have already been accomplishing the goals and the objectives and the milestones that you set for yourself. Looking forward to delivering another presentation to you today. And my, what an exciting presentation we have. Now, I can see that, it's buffering a little bit my end, but certainly hope that I'm coming through loud and clear. Looking forward to you joining me in the chat. So if you have joined me from the outset of today's show, thank you so much. It's a privilege and it is an honor to be able to present to you, my wonderful audience today. Now, let me give the camera a clean. Make sure I should have done this before, really, so apologies. There we go. Let's hope that the camera is absolutely fine so that you're seeing me, and certainly hope that you're hearing me well as well. Now, the clocks have gone forward in Britain, so we're now on British summertime. So I hope I don't lose too many of you. And I know that some of you are going to be joining me in an hour's time because, I'm starting for the rest of the world outside of the UK. I'm starting an hour earlier. And so whereas I was starting 4 p.m. EST time, I'm now starting 3 p.m. EST time. So certainly hope that you've picked that up and that you are aware that I'm starting the show an hour earlier. So please do spread the word. Sister Shanice in the house, rearing to go. Today's conversation is going to be around the history of Iran. We actually started looking at the history of Iran last strong. Some say weak, we say strong. Because words are powerful. And we're going to be continuing in the region of Iran today. In the past, it was known by many names. And wow, we're going to be having a conversation tonight about that region that has got so much of our history there. And, you just wouldn't know unless we do the research, and some of us take the time to actually bring the knowledge and the information to you, our wonderful audience. You just wouldn't know that we've got all of this fantastic, blacktastic history in the region of Iran. So I'm really excited about today. Certainly hope it's been a good day for you today, and that it's going to be an even better day now that, I'm going to be bringing you this presentation. So please do let your family and friends know that I'm in the house and I'm rearing to go, and I've got a great presentation lined up for you that I'm starting an hour earlier. Yeah, because it is, I'm going by the British summertime, the UK time frame, and it's now 8 p.m. in the UK, whereas, GMT time around the rest of the world, it's 7 p.m. And of course, if you put your watch on alarm for the show to start an hour later, you're going to miss an hour of the show. And so that's where we're at the moment. And I'm excited. So I know we're going to get a bit of a interesting, insightful journey today. So I certainly hope that you are ready for the ride. Okay, I'm buffering a little bit my end, but it will get better as the evening goes on. There tends to be like a congestion on the internet around this time, which is why when I was going on an hour earlier, it actually suited me better in terms of the internet. But yeah, it is the way it is. If you think, oh, I should come on an hour later and that time suits you well, let me know. Drop messages and let me know if we should continue, just waiting an hour later, or if I should stick to the same time that I have been sticking to for the last how many years. All right, so you know how I do at the beginning of the show, I send out the links to family members and friends. And because it's buffering a little bit, it will take a little time, but it will happen. So I'm just waiting for the message that I've sent to come through, notify me that we are live on air. And as soon as that comes through, I'll be sending it out to all the massive and crew. Yeah. So hit me up in the chat, family. Yeah, let me know that you're in the house and that you're watching. Let me know where in the world you're watching me from as well. Let's see if that message has come through. Not quite as yet, but it will do eventually. Yeah, so if you've been following this series, oh my gosh, it's been absolutely phenomenal. And thank you all so much for the feedback and the feed forward that you've been giving me as well about the show. We have been tracing our ancestors and the footprints that they have been leaving behind, etched in stone from Africa across Asia and around the various continents of the world. And our ancestors are absolutely incredible, phenomenal. Their journey, the time that we have been on this earth for. It's so underestimated. The level of sciences, the technologies, the craftsmanship, the engineering skills, the building skills. Oh my gosh, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And today is episode 10, and it's going to be another exciting episode. So the internet, as I said, is buffering a little bit, but we will get there. We certainly will. So have you been enjoying the series? I certainly hope that you have. As you all know, those of you who've been following me from session 1 will know that there's a huge amount of work that has gone into this series. And I hope you're feeling as proud as I am about our ancestors, their societies, the civilizations that they established, the monuments that they carved in stone all around the world, places like India, all over Asia, like Thailand and Japan and Cambodia, Iran, Afghanistan, Israel, all over the so-called Middle East, all over Asia, all the way into Europe. Our ancestors were there first, and we've been tracing their footprints, and we've been claiming, the history as rightfully ours, because it is indeed rightfully ours. And if you've missed the previous episodes, the previous 9 episodes, you can catch them on my channel. You can go back on my channel and you can do the catch up in your own time. There's so much research that I have been uncovering from episode 1 all the way through to episode 9. We've been tracing the journey of our Asian ancestors from Africa as they migrated out of Africa and journeyed across the different continents. We have been tracing their footsteps on every continent. And we are, as Africans, the indigenous people of every continent on this planet. Yes. And if we didn't walk over thousands of years, when the land separated, we were in boats. And in episode 2, there's evidence of the boats that we took and sailed around the world, family. Oh my gosh. Our people are just so creative and so inventive. I tell you, if there's a mission to be accomplished, we will find a way to accomplish that mission, because, it's just in our nature to be creative and inventive. So this is taking a good while today. As I said, there's internet traffic congestion at this time of day, and it is the way it is. And so I've just got to work with it, family. So in the meantime, between time, as the internet is buffering, let me tell you, family, about my book, hidden in the shadows of ancient Britain, an erased African history restored. If you're enjoying these series, if you're enjoying learning and finding out about our history, if you're enjoying the knowledge that I have been uncovering about our presence in India, all over Asia, all over the Americas, etc., well, get my book, because in that book, I actually home in on our history in Britain. Now, a lot of people think that we just arrived in Britain with the Windrush, but that is a lie from the pit of hell. We have been in Britain for thousands of years, at least 44,000 years. Yes, you heard it right. We have been in Britain for tens of thousands of years. And I, in my book, Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain, an erased African history restored, I actually document and provide evidence, archaeological evidence, documented evidence, linguistic evidence, anthropological evidence, archaeological evidence in that book. And all my sources are at the back of the book. All the references are there. There's an index at the back of the book as well. So, you know, you can just flick to, say you're interested in learning more about let me give you a great one that a lot of people don't know about. Queen Scotia, who Scotland was named after. Maybe it was pronounced Queen Scotta. You know, if you want to know more about her and her lineage, yeah, and her descendants who ruled Ireland and Scotland for over 1,000 years. They ruled for about 1,300 years. If you want to learn about her and her lineage, there's a chapter dedicated to her in that book. Some incredible characters in British history from ancient times who have been written out of the history books that I have written back into history, okay? And so that's why it's so important that, one, we research our own history from an Africa-centered perspective. Secondly, it's really important that once we do the writing, the research, that we write up that history. And, you know, once that history has been written, then, you know, I need you, our wonderful supporters, to actually buy the book, okay? Get the knowledge and share the knowledge, because we all need to be aware of our phenomenal, incredible history. Let me see if I can get the link another way, because it's taken a while to go through. Oh, okay, yeah, it has gone through. Lovely jubbly. Even though it's spinning on my computer, it's gone through on my phone. So I'm just gonna share the link. And while I share the link, just tell you a little bit about some of the episodes that you may have missed, because we're actually now on episode 10 already. Oh, the strongs are just flying by. So yeah, go back to January, start with episode 1, and trace the journey of humanity, of our ancestors, of our great ones. Trace their journey across the continents with me, as I've been doing. In episode 2, I show you how we traveled and how we reached the various other continents. And in episode 3, I was uncovering our African global spiritual, the spiritual impact that we have had on the different continents. And, you know, we are the ones that developed the concept of spirituality, of gods, of goddesses, of worship, of, you know, being at one with nature. You know, we developed all of these concepts, and we did so in the physical as well as in the spiritual, and we left evidence of that across all the different continents as well. And it was through these spiritual systems as well that, you know, we also shaped the civilizations wherever we went. So when we traveled, we brought our culture, we brought our spirituality, we brought our civilization, we brought our belief systems, and we shaped those societies. All the continents at one time were worshipping black deities, the original gods that were worshipped all around the world had black skin like mine, broad nose like mine. Yeah, check out the series, family. Episode 3, episode 4. In episode 4, we continued across Asia and beyond. Episode 5, we started exploring the monuments, and we're going up face to face with our ancestors. We honed in on the Khmer Empire in Angkor, Cambodia, and that civilization there. Episode 6, we continued with the journey. We went into Vietnam and India and even deeper in Cambodia. There is some history, family, that we were not taught in the schools, colleges, or universities. And so that's why I've been doing the research, and that's why I'm here, family. And if you're interested in the Olmec heads, wow. In episode 7, we had the privilege of hearing directly from none other than Dr. Clyde Winters, my mentor. And he's been studying those Mexican, huge African heads for decades. And he was able to decipher the Olmec language as well. He recognized the similarities between the Olmec language and the Manding language. And so once he understood the Manding script, he was then able to work back and understand the text of the Olmec people, and recognize from his understanding of the text that those Olmec kings had their names written on the back of those helmets. So he was able to decipher the names of those kings. So check out that episode 7, where he was deciphering those African Olmec scripts and sharing with us, some very insightful history in the Americas. So lots going on in episode 7, in episode 8, again, we went into Mexico in a bit more detail, and we were just exploring the area and the civilization that they'd established there, and, how our ancestors were carving with intent and what that actually meant. In episode 9, which was last strong, we started looking at Iran, and our history in Iran goes back over 200,000 years. And at different stages, we were at obviously different stages of our advancement in terms of our high civilizations in those regions. And, for those of you who are looking now for evidence of our civilization and our greatness in those regions, there is still some evidence there. But, next strong, I'm actually going to be talking about and showing the destruction that has been happening to our monuments. And when you see the scale of the destruction in our lifetime that's been happening to the evidence of our history, you can understand then if this has been happening over hundreds of years, the deliberate erasure and destruction of our monuments and the displacement of the people. Once you start to recognize all of this, then you realize, then it becomes obvious why it's so difficult, to find the evidence, and why you have to do the digging like I do and have been doing for some time now, in order to be able to uncover the truth and to bring the truth to you, our wonderful audience. So I'm just posting as I'm talking to you, and I'm almost finished posting. And as soon as I do that, I'm going to check the chat, and then I'm going to be on, well, rearing to go with our presentation. So certainly hope that you are going to be staying with me for episode 10. So it's April Fool's Day today, and I hope that, you know, no one's made a fool out of you, and that you managed to get through the day unscathed. Have people been playing jokes on you? What jokes were they? Share, let me know. I'd be interested. I'm a bit off the grid, so I don't think I got caught up. No, I've been caught up in anything as far as I'm aware to do with April Fools. Were you? Were you for today? Certainly hope it's been a great day. So those of you who have already joined me and have realized that we're starting an hour earlier today, like I said, it was no joke that I was starting another hour earlier. Started an hour earlier because the clocks went forward in Britain. And so because I'm following the UK timeline for my shows, that's why I'm starting an hour earlier. So please do spread the word, spread the word. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to, I think that's probably enough posting now. Hopefully those who, I know a couple of people, I just thought, let's send it over to all the way to Nottingham, because I know Brother Kwame likes to get involved in these shows. We've got Kwame in Nottingham. There you are. Oh, and then our brother from another mother all the way in Canada as well. That's to be reminded, so let's let them know. So, I mean, you can always drop me your hotline number, your WhatsApp number, family, and if you'd like me to drop you notices of when I go live, I'm happy to do so, because you've all been telling me that YouTube has not been giving you the notifications, and we know what that's all about, don't we? But we press on regardless. We press on regardless, because sometimes, family, if you wait for these people to do for us, then we wouldn't get much done at all. Okay, so we just have to work within the system the best ways that we can. All right, so let's go over to the chat. Let me see who we got in the house. I'm just trying to bring that up on my phone right now. And to those of you who have joined me, please do give me a like and give me a thumbs up. Oh, we got Sayal in the house watching from Kenya. Rise up, beloved. Great to have you in the house. We've got Celie in the house as well, saying African. We're not all from Africa because so-called black skin. Go back to episode 1, okay? The human race started in Africa, and we're not all Africans on this planet. That's absolutely right. There are 2 species on this planet. Yeah, the 9 ether people, the original people, and there's also the 6 ether beings, okay? And we're not the same. We're not the same species, okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, go do your research, check it out for yourself, okay? Now, when I call us Africans, I'm using that to describe people with deep melanin, you know, and as you know, as Africans, we come in different shades. Some are very dark, beautifully dark, like almost like the color of this top that I'm wearing. And some are very light, almost like, you know, the colors in my book. Up here, we've got light shades, like our brothers and sisters in some parts of South Africa. So we've got all shades of what we call today Black people or Africans, okay? So I'm just using the word African to describe us as a people, the original people, the first people on the planet, yeah, who originated in the region that we call Africa today, and then migrated out to other parts of the world, okay? All right. Now, today, a lot of our people are confused about origin and nationality. Okay. There's a big difference between origin and nationality. Yeah. So you can originate in Africa if you was to trace your lineage all the way back. Yeah. As an African, as a deeply melanated person like myself, you traced your lineage all the way back. Yeah, it would take you through Europe, through the Caribbean, all through Europe again, through the Middle East and into Africa. Okay, origin, your nationality. You could be born in China, get a Chinese passport, Chinese nationality. Born in America, you get the American nationality. Born in Britain, you get British national. You're born in Russia, you become a Russian national. Nationality and origin is different, okay? In my earlier sessions, I talked about the mixing between the different species that produce, some of the offsprings that we've got today, the Caucasians and the Asians, yeah? So you've got the Chinese today, okay, who are, mixed with the Africans, all right, and the other species thousands of years ago. All righty, now, if you're Chinese, your origin is Chinese. Even if you're born in America, you're suddenly, doesn't mean you're suddenly not Chinese anymore because you're born in America. You're still Chinese, yeah, because your origin, yeah, is that of a Chinese person. All right, so hopefully that's explained it for you, Celie. We got Ottawia in the house. Rise up, rise up. We got Kwame Abache in the house. One of my regular audience members. Always a privilege to have you in the house. Brother Kwame, thank you for your ongoing support. We got Ottawa in the house from Nottingham. Oh, it's Brother Kwame from Nottingham. Rise up, rise up. I just sent you the link as well. Brilliant to have you in the house. Yeah, what do you say, my two Kwames, to our beloved Celie, who's saying Africans are not all from Africa? Please enlighten our beloved in the chat. We got Sheriff S in the house, another one of our regulars. Oh, beautiful Sister Queen. Great to have you in the house. Big up, and bless her every time she says today is what I consider to be the new year. And it is 4 years today. Oh, that I lost my daddy. Big up and bless up, sis. Oh, my super sister. I hope you have just wonderful memories of your daddy and that his spirit still continues to lift you up, to inspire you, to give you the instructions in from the spirit realm as he was doing when he was in the physical world. We know what it's like to lose loved ones. I'm sure all of us, by the time we get to my age, we know what it's like to lose our nearest and dearest, but they're never really gone. For as long as we remember them, for as long as we call their name, for as long as we can hear them talking to us, they're not gone. They're still here. And I know we miss them in the physical, but, it's the cycle of life where today when we go into our show, we're going to be talking about those who were here before, but have, all moved on. It's the cycle of life. I'm here today, and there's going to be a tomorrow when I'm not here. It's life. Well, so rise up, Sister Queen. Enough love to you. Yeah, all the love is coming in as well from those in the house. Sister Karen's in the house from the US. Karen, you're right. Yeah, we started an hour earlier today because it's we're going on the British summertime time scale. So I'm glad you realized and you joined us today. Enough love to you, Sister Teresa, as well. Great to have you in the house. Yeah, okay. Yes, indeed, Sister Karen. There's going to be more Blacktastic education today. Oh, I've got some of our beloved audience members in the house, our regulars. And to those of you who are not logged in, you have to log in to be able to post your messages in the chat. And I'd love to hear from you as well. So do log in, okay? So I know you're in the house. And once you log in, please do give me a thumbs up as well. Give this show a like, okay? Well, I am ready and rearing to go. Certainly hope that you are too, because today is episode 10, and we're going to be homing in again on Iran. If you was following last John, you will know that we had, I started the session of our ancients in Iran, and I'm going to be continuing that today. So are you ready? Are you ready? Hopefully you're ready like Freddy. So let me minimize everything in the background here. Let's minimize my WhatsApp and everything else. I don't know why that WhatsApp is just there spinning and spinning. Oh, now it's there still spinning. Hopefully it can spin in the background and it won't slow things down too much. Now, gotta work with these things, So let's get ready to share screen. I don't have any sound from any videos, so I don't need that. There's the presentation. I usually have to do this twice, as you know, those of you who follow me regularly, it jumps between screens. Right, there we go. It's just jumped again. Okay, let's just check. 1, 2. Yes, it tried jump again. Okay. All right. There we go. Right, let's try it now. Let's see if it's ready to do the business. Da-da-da. No, it's not. Okay, let's try again. I'm just seeing my little face there. Oh, too funny. Right, let's try and share again. It's just going really slow, but after about 8 o'clock, it will speed up. There's just a lot of internet traffic this time of day, family. And, apologies for that. Right, share. Let's get ready for today's presentation. Yeah, as background. Okay, put that in the background. Let's try again. You see, yeah, I think this is the one. Yeah, okay, let's go to slideshow. Yeah. Take your time and spin. And, one slideshow, yeah. Seem to be, yeah. We're almost there. We are almost there. When Iran was black. Yes, we are taking our history back. Blackety back. So, family, yeah, please do continue as well to rise up our beloved Dr. Clyde Winters as well. Yeah, keep him in your prayers, send his healing vibrations out there to him because he's, still a little under the weather, and we can lift him up if we're all working together and sending him healing vibrations. So if we just home in on his spirit now and just lift the spirit of Dr. Clyde Winters so that he can come bouncing back, because as you know, he's just got so much to give our community. And he's a great man, and I look forward to him rejoining us on this platform as well. Oh, Sister Kev, you got a notification this time. Brilliant. You got a notification that the show is going to be starting at 3 p.m. your time. That is fantastic. Okay, that is good news indeed. I hope all the other 15,000 subscribers got the message as well. I don't think so. Otherwise, we'd be chock-a-block here in the house. So let's get going, because you know how quickly time flies. Oh dear, look how far my water is. Let me just grab my water, and then we're gonna hit the road. There we go. When Iran was black. So over the last 10 series, I've been highlighting the hidden history of our African ancestors outside of Africa. Our scholars have done a phenomenal amount of work actually teaching us about our great empires and our great cities, mainly on the continent of Africa, because that's where it all started. But not only do we have an incredible ancient history in Africa, we've got an equally incredible ancient history on all the continents of this planet. And this is what we have been uncovering. And today we're going to be in the region of Iran. And we're going to be uncovering the civilizations in that region. And, you know, it was known by different names, and we're going to enlighten ourselves of the different names that our ancient civilizations were called back in the day. And, you know, it's good to know the original names, because then when you're reading about these places in some of the history book, you'll know, oh, yeah, and you'll make that instant connection. So let's continue to explore the movement of our ancestors from Africa to the various parts of the world. And I'm actually going to be using archaeological evidence, ancient texts, monumental evidence, and some documented evidence as well. And we're also going to be, where applicable, maybe in this session as well, looking at some fossil remains and the findings from those fossil remains. We did that in the last episode. We might have some of that again in this episode as well. And taken together, all of this evidence actually proves, you know, indisputably and irrefutably the fact that our ancient ancestors were in those regions. And my methodology, my research methodology was taught to me by none other than Dr. Clyde Winters, the great Dr. Clyde Winters. And he said, you know, because our history is, because there's been a deliberate attempt out there basically just to erase our history, when you come to your people with knowledge of our ancient history, he says it's not enough just to bring one piece of evidence, yeah? So you have to look to bring various bits of evidence together to prove beyond doubt. You know, it's like you're in the courtroom, you've got to prove beyond doubt that, you know, this piece of history actually belongs to your people. So that's what I do, why I, you know, bring archaeological, the monumental artifacts and all these other pieces together, okay? And so we're going to be looking at the region of Iran. At one time it's known as Elam, and there was a great city in Elam called Susa. And well, it's claimed that it was one of the oldest known cities on earth, but we know why they're claiming that, because they're putting it in the region of the so-called Middle East. But, you know, that great city, yeah, was founded by people who had founded earlier cities as well. They'd already founded writing systems, which they brought to the area. They'd already established trade networks and trade routes that they brought to the region. The monuments that we're going to look at in the region of Iran, you will be able to see the similarities if you've been following the episodes of similar monuments on other continents as well. So, you know, you can challenge and get those scholars to rethink the origins of the civilizations in the region, because, you know, those civilizations already existed in Africa, which is where our story begins. Okay, so yes, you heard me right, beloved in the house. Our story, the African story, actually begins in the region of the world that we call Africa today. Thanks, Sister Keb. Yes, please, everyone, do like and share this platform. Thank you so, so much. Let's all learn together and share the knowledge and just keep on learning. So we're on episode 10, the hidden history of Iran, the story they tried to hide. Okay, and please, if you haven't already got my books, and if you want to support the works that I'm doing, you can support the works by actually getting a copy of one of my books. Okay, I've got a few books out there, and as I've said, you know, inspired by none other than Dr. Clyde Winters, who's got over 50 books himself out there that you can get on Amazon. So I'm way behind, and I do plan to write another book this year, but I'll see if I get around to it, because this piece of research that I'm doing just for this series takes up so much of my time. It doesn't leave me time to do much else. But grab the title of one of those books, and please do buy at least one so that you can be supporting the works that I'm doing. My gosh, family, I wanted to buy a book. There's a book that I wanted. Yeah. And when I looked at the price of that book, it was over $300. $300. This is how they keep information from us. They put the prices so high, you know, $300 for a book. But, you know, this is a book that the author had spent a lifetime writing, and basically in that book it is said that there were images of over 1,000 pieces of artifacts from Iran. I was like, what? Because usually when they excavate these African tombs, these ancient African tombs, they'll find it packed with artifacts, but they'll just show you one or two little trinkets that they found, and all the rest goes into their museums, it goes to their universities, it goes to the auction houses, and is sold off to the highest bidders. And we, the descendants of those great ones, just don't see, you know, the artifacts. But the next best thing to actually see in the artifacts is to see an image or a photograph of it. And, you know, this book, costing over $300, is a book that I would love to have a copy of. So please do get my books, buy, so that I can get the money to buy other books and then share, you know, those images and the knowledge with you. And thanks to those who have already bought a copy of my book. Thank you. So yes, we're going to be going into our history, which is, you know, often whitewashed as well, because, you know, as we go into the region of Iran, yeah, a lot of people are going to probably be contesting what I have to say, but that's absolutely fine. But what I found from the research is that that region is layered with history. And the deeper you dig, the blacker the region becomes. Okay, when you go way back to the origins and the original people of the region and the foundations, those who laid the foundation of that region, they were all, as Dr. Clyde calls us, blackety black. Yes, we were all blackety black in that region as well. But, you know, what happens over time is that we get conquered, and you get new groups of people coming into the region. They change the religion, they change the names of the places. Sometimes they scatter the people, genocide the people in the region. You know, they carry out all sorts of atrocities, and the people get displaced, and new people come in and they take over that region, they rename it again. So you get a series of conquests and invasions and takeovers and name changes, and then their scholars will rewrite the history. And over time, you know, new generations who are born are indoctrinated with the current history, and, you know, so it goes on. But, you know, when a region goes through so much change like that, you're going to get various different groups who try and lay claim to the history of that region. But when we go back, you will find that the people, the original people who laid the foundation for the Persian Empire, laid the foundations for the Arabs in that region today, and laid the foundations for the more recent Islamic empires in that region today, it was us, the Africans. I'm not saying these others didn't have a role to play. They did have a bit of a role to play. But the bigger question that we've got to ask is why is it in all these regions, that they want to just hide the evidence of who the earliest people were, hide the evidence of, the great and significant contributions that we've made to the regions, hide the evidence of what their empires were actually built on, hide our identity, hide the original names of the regions, hide, the works of the earliest populations. This is what those who come in later and settle in our region tend to do. And we have to learn from this history, because when we invite people in, or we allow people to come and settle among us, it starts off very innocently. One family, then they multiply, and it's a bit like Britain today, the odd few Asian families started coming in now. Hey, Britain is more Asian to a large extent in many parts of Britain than it is Caucasian. And this is what happens. And then, if they grow in power, they take over control of large regions of the country. They run the councils or run the local governments. They run the local police forces, the fire brigades, the hospitals, and before you know it, the complexion of an area can change, and it all starts with the early settlement. And this is what happened in in all the regions outside of Africa, where we were the original foundational people who brought the culture, the technology, the early systems, and the early way of life from Africa to those regions. So, the oldest of them all are going to be us, the founding African mothers and fathers. And we are the ones, family, who brought civilization to all the regions, including Iran. We were the ones who built those early great cities, and you're going to see the evidence of that as well. So yeah, when people say, well, where's the evidence of it? Just remember that over time, through conquest, through cultural change and new groups of people coming in, and the rewriting of history in particular, a lot of our story becomes fragmented. It gets lost, it gets reinterpreted, and quite often it just gets pushed into the background. Kwame Oboje is saying, yes, they have erased our lifestyle. Indeed. So, and this is what happens. And that's why it's so important for us to hold on to our culture as well, because, our culture becomes really important in helping to identify where we have been. Because if you've been watching these series, it's from the small fragments of archaeological discoveries that I am often able to identify the cultural significance of those pieces of antiquity and link it to our even modern day civilizations, because, as they say, nothing's new under the sun. But, this sort of work is essential, family, because, if we're not the ones as African-centered researchers doing the work to uncover our history, who's going to do it? We can't expect others to do it for us, not in this day and age. In the past, there were those honest researchers, some honest researchers, honest priests and travelers, who documented things as they saw it. And it's from these early documents that, when they describe the complexion of the people that they came across in those areas, that we're able to use that as evidence, because it's an eyewitness account, like you're in court, and you've got an eyewitness account of something that is, counts for a huge amount. So it stands firmer in a court of law than someone who's coming with hearsay or third-handed information. So yeah, when we do Afrocentric scholarly work, having documented eyewitness account is critical as when we start building the evidence and of our history. And of course, to examine the early archaeological information, the genetical information, and the monuments and the features, etc., on those monuments, and connecting it back to the earlier, examples of that in Africa is all important in helping us to identify the true beginnings of some of these regions, okay? Because, you know, if the ancient world didn't actually, you know, etched their features into these monuments, if they didn't build these great megalithic stone monuments and leave the evidence of who they were, it would have been even more difficult. It'd be like trying to trace a ghost. But, you know, our ancestors, they knew there would be a time when we would have to be reminded as a people of our great ancient history in the ancient world that began much earlier than today's scholars, historians from the mainstream would have us believe. So, yeah, we're still on that journey. The responsibility is ours. And in learning our history, hopefully, we won't be making the same mistake again in the past. Okay, so let's study our history, question it, uncover it, learn from it so we don't make the same mistakes again. All right, let's get into the history. So I got this timeline from the World Encyclopedia, and they started it at 4,200 BCE. So it's about, you know, 6,000 plus years ago. And they're saying in 4,200 BCE, the city of Susa was founded. Okay, now, you know, they're saying it's one of the oldest known settlements. And yeah, it goes back 6,000 years. But even though this city was the capital of the Elamite civilization, it started from somewhere, okay? The city just didn't grow out of the ground and all of the knowledge and the technology and the science and everything, you know, emanate from there 4,000 years ago. No, there were much earlier civilizations. Okay, so you have the Elamite civilization, and later on, the Elamite civilization gave rise to the Achaemenid civilization, which was another great empire, and it depends on where you read as well, because, you know, there's some historians that will date Susa and the Achaemenid Empire to have originated over 7,000 years ago. And so it's interesting when you look at these different sources, because it really depends on what piece of archaeological evidence they have concentrated on or has been brought to their attention. So if there's a particular archaeological dig that one group of researchers have had access to, and that archaeological dig has been dated 7,000 years ago, that's what they'll be referencing. But if another group of researchers maybe didn't have sight of that research, is using something else, as the World Encyclopedia is, they'll date it 4,200 years ago. Okay, so 4,200 years ago, we've got the city of Susa. 3,200 BCE to 2,700 BCE. You've got the Elamite period. 2,700 BCE, we've got the first war in recorded history. They say between the Elams and the Suma. The Suma wins. 2,700 BCE to 1,600 BCE. You've got the old Elamite period, and then 1750 BCE, you've got Elam conquers 1500 BCE, the middle Elamite period. And as you can see, you can look at this in your own time, all the different periods coming right down to the turn of the century, okay? So you can see the Elamites when they were at their height, so to speak, and you can see the wars that were going on to try and conquer their empires, and how they eventually kind of lost around about 648 BCE to the Assyrians, war between the Assyrians and the Elamites, and that destruction of their city and that of the city of Susa was considerable. And so as kingdoms rise, kingdoms fall, and new kingdoms come in and take over, and old kingdoms get absorbed into the new empires and new kingdoms. And so sometimes you get these individuals or these kingdoms that are said to be great, but they don't talk about, you know, the earlier kingdoms or empires that existed there that got absorbed into the new empires. When they get absorbed into the new empires, you know, their writing script gets absorbed, their monuments, their culture, their inventions, their sciences, it all gets absorbed. And so when we look at, talk about the city of Susa and that civilization, it's actually situated in the region of Khuzestan, and that's a province of Iran, and that's between the Karkeh and Des rivers, and it serves as a vital urban center in the fertile plains near the Zagros Mountains. And this region is of historical significance because they're trying to claim that this is the region for them. They're trying to claim, you know, the Middle East. They're trying to claim this region. And they're trying to say that basically humanity and civilization started in this region. But we know that's not the case, because even if they try and start their civilization there around 4,200 BCE, that's 6,000 years ago, we know from the previous episodes that we can actually trace humanity back, you know, to hundreds of thousands of years, possibly millions of years. But, you know, we'll stick with the hundreds of thousands of years. We've got our Stone Age era, our Neolithic era. We've got all the ancient eras as Africans prior to, you know, the Susa civilization, which is recent in the scope of our history. 6,000 years ago in our history is recent. In episode 9, remember, we were looking at our history 300,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, 80,000 years ago, and the evidence that has been found in some of these tombs, okay? And I've got some really interesting findings in today's session as well. So the Elamite capital actually served as the capital of the Elamite civilization for centuries. And, you know, as we're seeing from the timeline, they were frequently involved in conflict with the Mesopotamian powers. That region, the same region that they call Mesopotamia, again, it's fairly recent in terms of our history. So you had the Achaemenid winter capital as well, and later we had Darius the so-called Great and other Achaemenid kings who utilized Susa as a winter capital. Okay, and it's also where you've got the building of the Pandana Palace complex. So there's been quite a lot of archaeological discoveries in the region as well. One of the famous ones, they've dated to 1772 BC, is a stele of Babylonian law that was actually discovered in Susa. And that was likely, they said, brought there as a war booty. There have been excavations in the region as well. And these excavations have revealed massive platforms, palaces, and fortifications. Very little evidence, you know, but from the excavations, they can find, you know, the foundations of some of these, which must have been, they said, massive palaces and fortifications. They've also found vast collections of artifacts from the Elamite era. They've got pottery, they've got bronzes, they've got administrative tools. All of these things have been recovered. Where can we go and see them? You know, only heaven knows. And of course, there's the cultural and religious world of culture that was brought to the region as well. So they claimed the tomb of Daniel, that's believed to be the house tomb of the prophet Daniel. And you've got the region in the past as a major global connection as well, and a major kind of routeway for political and economic transactions. So it was an economic hub and a major trading route right into when they had Persia. They were bridging the Persia Empire with the Mesopotamia, with Egypt and Greece. So it's a massive trading network across all of those northeast African countries. And yeah, so today that site, but back then at one time that was known as Sush, that was a city in Iran, and that preserves, some of the architectural discoveries. They've also still got many mounds that's recognized by UNESCO in the area as well. And even anthropologists, they report a distinct Negrito, they say, or DBP presence at the earliest levels. Okay, so you've got, some of their people like Dilolo Foy and De Morgan, who claimed that there was a very ancient population of Susa. So some of them will admit to it, and they say that this is obvious, that they were Negritos, who were probably, they say, the original inhabitants. We know that they absolutely were. And they are claiming to believe this based on the relics and that you're going to see, and also based on some of the dark populations that still can be found in some places in Iran. And the anthropologists' report about that came from a book entitled When the World Was Black. Okay, so once again, when we look at Iran, we can't look at it as it was today. We have to go back to the beginning. We have to look back to the early civilizations in that region. And in so doing, when we look back at these early civilizations, like, when we go back on these timelines to these early civilizations, what we will see is basically a continuation of African civilization that was brought to the region by our ancient ancestors. And that's how we've got to see these early civilizations wherever they are in the world. We've got to recognize the fact that it's a continuation and just a spreading of African civilization that was brought to these regions and all around the world in the ancient world during those early times. Okay, our ancestors journeyed, they enjoyed journeying and settling in new regions and building civilizations. They enjoyed bringing their traditions and their expressions and their order, to the regions wherever they went. And yeah, it's just phenomenal. So let's have a look at some of the monuments there. This is known as the Silverfish Lady. Now, they were talking about Susa being one of the oldest cities, but even before Susa, there were the ancient Sumerians. And Sumerians means the black-headed ones. And these black-headed ones, known as Sumerians, lived in the southern part of what is now Iraq. And it was the heartland of the Sumer, and that lay between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. Now, remember, we were looking at a timeline by the British Encyclopedia, and if you look at that alone, you wouldn't know to go further back. But if you go back 8,000 years, way before the Greeks, the Romans, and even Susa, the Sumerian civilization had actually been established in that region. There was a Sumerian culture, writing system, training systems, and the Greeks later called that same region Mesopotamia. Okay, now when we talk about the Greeks in Britain, if you study history in Britain, you get the impression that the civilization started with the Greeks. Yeah, the Greeks just came in and claimed what was already there and renamed places, like they called the region the Sumerian region or the Elamite region, Mesopotamia. Okay, so they give it a new name, and then by giving it a new name, they claim the history, they're now claiming it as the cradle of civilization, and this is how they write themselves into our history, okay? But as I said, there's different layers to history, but we've always got to remember that even the Sumerians, the black-headed ones, they didn't just spring up in isolation either as an advanced Asian African kingdom. No, they didn't, because even during the time of the Sumerians, yeah, you had Asian kingdoms in Kush, Asian kingdoms in modern day Sudan, okay, powerful African civilizations that went back thousands of years, okay. So anyway, we've got this image here that's called the Silver Fish Lady, and this was from the two elite burial sites that they found in Tehran. And here you've got this woman just seated. It was she's the handle of a pan, actually. But if you look, and I was looking at it, and I could see her hair look like a buff afro. Look at these plaits here. It looks like it's plaited, cane row at the front, buff underneath, and big plaits, you know, just a big plait coming down and round, yeah? And look at her with her bracelets on her arm, up here, and from her wrist going up to her elbow down here. Look at the bracelets that she's wearing and the necklace that she's wearing around her neck. And then I'm like, I see that all over Africa. So I've just pulled up this picture here of a woman from West Africa who today still wears bracelets in the way that this Iron Lady that's dated 575 BC was wearing her bracelets, you know, thousands of years ago. So very little changes. Even today, these bracelets signifies when a woman wears these sorts number of bracelets, basically in the culture it's saying her husband is wealthy. The more bracelets, the wealthier her husband is. And so, you know, it's in some cultures, bracelets are communicating an important message. You know, it's a symbol of her husband's wealth. In the past, they were predominantly made from copper, because back then copper was like red gold. It was the red gold of Africa. And so thousands of years ago, you had Africans, ancestors, they put this out, they put this picture out, this is what they do. They put these pieces of artifacts out that they think, you know, will suggest to people that it's a European, yeah? But when you know our plaques, and when you see enough of the artifacts of our African ancestors and how they would kind of represent plaits and thick plaits on the artifacts and cane rows on the artifacts, you know, and look at the style at the back as well of that plait. So you've got the plaits going in this way, and then you've got a big plait in the middle coming down. You just know what you're looking at. And then when you see the cultural evidence as well that goes right back into Africa, you know this is coming out of African civilization. So let's blow it up the other way around now. So here we have on Our Lady, our modern lady, who is from the, she's a Hama woman from Ethiopia's Omo Valley. You can see she's wearing the bracelets, just like our silverfish lady's wearing the bracelet here. And you can see that she's wearing the seashells as well. And if you remember, in the last episode, I brought to your attention some ancient tombs where they'd actually found perforated seashells. In some parts, it goes back as far back as 300,000 years. But last week, there was a tomb that I highlighted, the Cafes tomb, that had perforated shells in it. And that was dated 80, I think it was 80 to 130,000 years old. And so, you know, right up until today, our people are still wearing these perforated seashells. And I've got mine on today that you might be able to see. You know, I've got these perforated seashells that I bought here in West Africa. I've got the necklaces, I've got the ankle bracelets, I've got them in earrings, I've got them to wear around my wrist. And this piece of cosmetic jewelry, say, goes back hundreds of thousands of years. Oh my gosh, yes. Our women, you know, like to adorn themselves back then up until now. Look at the buff plaits that she's wearing there, and her necklace and her bracelets. Wow, wow, wow. So again, accessories was not just about decoration to our people. These bangles and other forms of accessories, the necklaces, the colorful beads, you know, they were symbols back then, and to some extent now as well, of material status. It was symbols of wealth. It was symbols of beauty as well, you know. And so this was the women's way of beautifying themselves by wearing, you know, all these multiple bracelets. Sometimes they'd be in different colors. So imagine you get this silver color metal, the red gold color metal. They might be mixed up a bit. You know, the more you had going up the forearm, you know, again, the wealthier you would be. It's just like if you had gold, if they were all gold bracelets today, that would, you know, suggest that that person and that person's family is very wealthy. And, you know, back then, and even today in many parts of Africa, we love our colorful necklaces, you know, that we wear around our neck. We also, back then until now, have very elaborate hairstyles and ways, creative ways of doing our hair and adorning ourselves. Last week as well, we were looking at the ochre, the red ochre, and how it was used over 100,000 years ago, you know, as a paste that our ancestors would put in their hair. It was used as a dye to color their hair. It was used to lock their hair. It was used as the adhesive. It was used to put on the skin to protect our people from the UV rays. Not only did it act as a sunscreen, it also kept the insects away and the mosquitoes away. I mean, all of this knowledge of just the ochre, for example, had been developed over hundreds of thousands of years. And our African brothers and sisters in some parts of Africa still use that tradition until today. And many of us as African women still decorate, you know, our arms and our necks and do elaborate hairstyles and the cane rows and the plaits and etc. from then until now. Wow. And you know, what's also, what I realized as well as I was looking at this is the important role of the woman in handing down cultural traditions to the girls, to, you know, just teaching our girl children how to plait and how to cane row. We may not realize the importance of it, but in terms of our cultural identity, in terms of our history, that connection, you know, just through the way that we do our hair, goes back over 100,000 years. That unbroken generational transfer of, you know, a traditional way of plaiting, of cane rowing, corn rowing, the Chinese bombs, etc., etc. It's just phenomenal. I was like, wow. And I was just like thinking about it and looking at it and going back into the history and seeing the evidence of it. I was like, wow. Here we have another image, modern image of a beautiful African woman's body wearing the bracelets in a very stylish way, in the same way we did thousands of years ago. So you've seen from the silver lady fish, that very ancient piece of artifacts that was found in the region of Iran and Israel, in the Middle East, probably in the region of the Middle East. You can see there, she's wearing the bracelets. You can see the big plaits that she's got on her hair over some buff that she's got underneath. And wow, it's still being worn today, and it's still an elaborate and beautiful accessory today as it was back then. Let me check the chat. Brother Kwame is saying, amazing. Kwame Aboje, our beautiful sisters with their lovely locks and braids from our mothers. Yes. Ida is saying, thank you, sis. I love your channel. Thank you so much. I love you back, Sister Ida. Kwame saying, our beautiful ancestors knew how to be hygienic and fashionable. Yes, indeed. Welcome, Sister Betty in the house. She says, we are the originators of fashion and style. From then till now, sis, absolutely. Sister Kev is saying, Caucasians do not wear those types of bracelets. So true, you know, and these are the giveaways. This is what, you know, what we've got to just find and make the connection back to our ancestors. So glad that you're loving it, because, you know, as I was watching, finding out this and seeing it, I was like, wow, our ancestors, our creativity. Our Cablelands in the house, rise up, rise up. Our Cableland says, global greetings from Nevis in the Caribbean. Yashon Tafari locked in. Great to have you locked in, Tafari. He said, we have to share our stories and our narrative. Yes, indeed we do. And yes, Sister Karen, Caucasian's hair is not that thick either. That's right, to make that type of hairstyle. Indeed, their hair is limp like horse's hair, as we know. It's only we can get them kind of buff then, and the plait on top of the buff as well. So, you know, when you look, however, at some of these supposedly ancient, pieces, you have to question some of the depictions. But if we look here, I look at these depictions and I always try and match the descriptions with the depictions with the descriptions. And when there's a contradiction between the two and it doesn't add up, then you know something's off. Because remember, I said the Sumerians, they were described as the black-headed ones. So that depiction there, right? When it doesn't match up, we have to question what's going on. And so if we don't read the descriptions from, you know, the ancient texts, then when we see and we're presented with something like this, which is obviously whitewashed, then you're going to get the wrong impression of what the Sumerian people actually looks like. Anyway, Sumer was the southern counterpart to the northern region of Akkad, whose people gave Sumer its name, meaning land of the civilized kings. The Sumerians themselves refer to their region simply as the land, or the land of the black-headed people. So, you know, if you've got the Sumerian who were describing themselves and giving themselves a name as the land of the black-headed people, then when we see images of them being depicted like that, we have to question it, because the two just don't add up. Okay, all righty. So the ancient Sumerians, the black-headed ones, they actually lived in the southern part of what is now Iraq. The heartland of Sumer lay between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers in what the Greeks, as I said, they changed the name and called the region Mesopotamia. And when you change the name, you mess up the history, and that is what is intended, okay? But when you look into the civilization of the Sumerians, you will find that in their region, they had developed highly sophisticated irrigation systems. The region at the time was very fertile. They had major cities there, and it had been in existence long before even the archaeologists themselves can identify, according to the Khan Academy, that these major cities had long been in existence before the period when the archaeologists can identify the Sumerian people themselves. So that's how old and ancient that region is, way back before the Elamites. You had the Sumerians, and even before the Sumerians, some archaeologists are saying it's difficult to date it. But you can cloud the whole of the history by just referring to it as Mesopotamia, which is what the Greeks called the region, because in so doing, it wipes out hundreds of thousands of years of history. So, but what this piece of art is telling us, even though the images don't fit the description, when you look at it, you can see that the Sumerians had the wheel, they had chariots, they had kings, they had horse-drawn chariots, their horses were in regal gowns and regalia, and these were all giveaways, you know, even though they've changed up the facial image. You know, they're telling, look at what they were wearing. These look like they could even have been like leopard skin, you know, animal skin, some sort of animal skin or fur even, you know, from animals that they had used to make these regal gowns. And remember, these Sumerians, it goes back thousands of years, and we can see thousands of years ago, we were making clothing. And the royals were clothed, you know, very regally. Not like how you might see Prince Charles stepping out today. When the Africans were kings and queens, oh my days, when an African king would step out or an African queen stepped out, you knew that they were a king or a queen, because, you know, they would look the part, not like today. The people who have inherited these titles from us now, them can't step in our shoes. Them can't step in our shoes. But, you know, yeah. And then you've got the same region. It was known as Elam. It was known as the Midian. It was known as the Persian Empire. And so, you know, when we look at the region of Iran, we quite often start with the Elam civilization, that they call one of the oldest, but there were older civilizations that were there before them as well. And, you know, the more we dig, the more we will begin to uncover, you know, these ancient civilizations, and the more we will know that when we're looking at even Elam or the Midian Empire, or the Persian Empire, it wasn't what they had built. Quite often they built on top of what was left from what they didn't destroy. Yeah, and they would have incorporated the ancient knowledge, the ancient history, and everything else at the same time as their wars and their conquests. And that's what's happened over time. Systematically, as a result of wars and conquests, our history has been erased, and crucial evidence of our ancient past gets erased. And next strong, I'm going to be focusing on some of that destruction that's even happening right up until today. Okay, because quite often, family, our history is not just lost, it's destroyed, it's removed, it's hidden, and it's even built upon. Yeah, but we are so thankful that our ancestors, left images of themselves on the walls, in the tombs, in the mountains. Yeah, and we've been uncovering and we've been finding out all of this over the last 10 sessions. And, I am so grateful for the internet, because back in the days, for example, when our beloved Rononko Rashidi was researching our history outside of Africa, he was on planes constantly, going all over, Asia and other parts of the world to look at, to find, and then to look at, and then to photograph these sorts of images. But here today in the modern age, we can go into the museums, we can do the research from our laptop, and we can find the documented evidence, and we can marry it up with the stelae, the reliefs, and the paintings and the artifacts. It's a job and a half. It's like putting a piece of jigsaw together, but we can do it. Yeah, and we must do it as well. So we're thankful to them for leaving evidence of their greatness behind. Look at how they used to wear their beards and their buff hair and plait it up. Wow, look how they used to dress, style and fashion them time there. Look at the arm, look at around the sleeves, the big sleeves, and ooh, and these are men going out with their bow and arrows, They wasn't even dressed for a function. They're stepping out, to what? Go and hunt? Or they're stepping out for war? What do you think, family? They've got their long stick, and it could be a priestly stick, because their regalia is quite suave. It's very regal, I think, very priestly. They're not wearing any shoes, so it could be that they're walking on sacred ground, and but it's interesting that they've got what looks like a bow. Maybe it's not a bow. Maybe it's an instrument. What do you think it is, family? Drop your ideas in the chat for me and let me know what you think our ancestors are actually holding, and why they are dressed the way they are dressed. Yeah. So, but it's fantastic that they left these sorts of depictions of themselves behind. And you can see from it the level of civilization that must have existed to be able to create, to weave, and to sew, these sorts of garments. Look at the style of their hair. Look at the care that went into their appearance. Look at the care that went into their dress. Look how neat their beard and their hair is groomed. Our people took care and pride in their appearance. And this is thousands of years old, family. Thousands of years old. Look at the pride. Yeah. Their wrap ain't hanging below their butt. Yeah. Yeah. They're not walking and holding their head down. They're holding their head up. You can see our people had a sense of pride back in the days. Wow, wow, wow. So there are many of their scholars out there. Some you can find who do tell a bit of the truth. This is Grafton Elliott Smith, and you can find his works. He was a prominent Australian British anatomist and anthropologist, and some of his writings is very interested indeed. And in 1909, he actually wrote of how the populations on either side of the Red Sea shared a common heritage. So those on the north of Africa, northeast Africa, Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, etc., and those on the other side of the Red Sea, in the region we now call Iraq, Iran, and the likes, that and the region as well that we call Arabia, he said that they shared a common heritage. Well, that's not surprising because our peoples we're seeing took their heritage and their culture with them. And so he's saying to his people, it seems probable that the substratum of the whole population of North Africa and Arabia, from the Atlantic to the Persian Gulf, if not further east, was originally one racial stock, which long before the earliest pre-dynastic period of Egypt had become specialized in physical characteristics and in culture in the various parts of its wide domain, and developed into the Berber, the Egyptian, the Ethiopian Hamitic, and the Arab populations. Later, he added that these cultures, after living separated from each other, had become definitively specialized in structure, in customs and beliefs, long before the dawn of the period as pre-dynastic in Egypt. Wow, so he's even had to come to the conclusion. And remember, these are the sorts of people from their positions who have sight of artifacts, who have sight of these archaeological regions that they're excavating, who have sight of these ancient books. And he's now concluding that we were the people on both sides of the Red Sea, across Asia, the Arab world, and possibly beyond, he said, were of the same racial stock. So, family, with this in mind, let's continue our journey. The next piece that we're going to look at, this CD here, remember, first of all, last strong in episode 9, right, we were learning that 300,000 years ago, our ancestors were using sharp tools, tools for cutting meat. They were using sharp tools for preparing plant food. They were using sharp tools to make their weapons for hunting. And then when they caught the animals, it looks as though they were using the sharp tools as well for processing the animal hide. And they would use the animal hide for clothing, for shelter, probably for flip-flops, sandals, and so much more. And they also found, remember, in some of these excavated sites that were over 100,000 years old and one as old as 300,000 years old, they found the flint tools. And these flint tools, was used for a whole range of things, but mainly for carving and chipping away at stone to make monuments. So go back and look at episode 9 if you missed that one, in particular homing on the Kwazé and School archaeological sites. Those sites were dated between 80 to 100,000 years old, okay? And it's in a region of present-day Israel as well, all right? But you will see from the earliest times that, our ancestors were already in that region. So let's go back in time and stay there, but from then until now. So when we look at these really ancient pieces of studies, what we can see is, evidence of our ancient ancestors and how they lived their life, the tools, their dress. Even though this one's all black and not as colorful as the one that we was looking at before, you can see the skirts, you can see the dress at the bottom, you can see the bracelets that they're wearing. The eyes, quite often in some of these images that they painted in the wooden and stone monuments that they carved, they'd have these extra big eyes. And it's believed that the eyes were big because it was like the all-seeing eye. It was symbolic. Yeah. And we know our people sometimes they colored themselves as well, because remember in the last episode we was talking about the red ochre. Yeah. They found 71 pieces of red ochre in that tomb, the Kazev tomb. So go check that out as well and see how I married that up to our sisters in various parts of Africa up until today who are still using the red ochre, yeah, as part of their tradition. So we can see modern examples in various parts of Africa of how we were using and how we still continue to use some of these pieces of artifacts that they found in these ancient tombs, yeah? So all of that was brought to life in my analysis in the previous episode. And here we're looking again at early ancestors. Again, look at the plaques. Look at the plaque coming down the back. Cane row, is that cane row there? Going over. And it's interesting how these faces look a bit like how they make the African masks. If you look all over West Africa, you will see the African masks that are made very similar to these. You've got the round, flat round shaped ones, and you've got the elongated ones as well. And it goes way back into our history. And it's for us to do our analysis of what these items were used for and what they represent. We can either read what they say, or we can have our own analysis and do our own analysis for ourselves. But what we do know from the burials as well is that, they had particular ways that they would bury their dead. There were certain rituals that they would carry out. Even the red ochre was found in the burial tombs. Even the red ochre was used in the preservation of some of these bodies as well in these tombs. And all of these findings, family, tell me that our ancient ancestors, were conscious in their behavior. They had an understanding, an overstanding of the minerals, the uses that these minerals could be put to. They made tools, and they put the tools to various uses as well. And some individual pieces of tools had a multiplicity of uses. And family, even in West Africa today, I tell you, workmen can turn up with 2 tools, a screwdriver and a hammer. And if you ever see the 101 uses that they put those 2 tools to, in England, yeah, you would have 100 tools for those 2 tools. I'm telling you, such is the skill of our ancestors and their ability to put things to good use. So we've got a long tradition, a long cultural tradition of putting things to good use and simple tools to good use as well. And it goes way back into our history. And so when you're going so far back in history, we shouldn't be surprised when they find that there were cities that were highly civilized, that may be dated 7,000 years old, 4,200 BC, or maybe dated 3,200 BC. Never ever imagine these cities as being primitive. Never imagine our ancestors as being primitive. We have had hundreds of thousands of years to develop and to perfect. And a lot of what is in use today comes from the brains and the intellect of our ancestors and what we had developed in the past. That basically the 2 tools, they look at how we use it, and then they come up with their version in modern society. And so, it's fortunate for us that our ancestors did actually leave behind, in those tombs, evidence of themselves. And just imagine, family, if our ancestors, were able to come to life and just rise up from those stones. Oh my gosh. Oops, get back here. That would be phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I did have a little sleeping. Where is it? Let me just scroll. I'm just scrolling forward to look for something that I thought was right there, but obviously isn't. So I'm just going forward on my slides. You can't see this, sorry about that. Okay, did I not put it in? Okay, oh gosh, and I went to great trouble to do that. And I've not even added it. Well, family, I did a little something, and it's not happening. So I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'll bring it next strong for you. Okay. Okay. All right. Now here's another example of a piece of artifact from our golden age. Now, this is painted pottery from the city of Susa, and they've dated it 4000 BC. And this was made by hand. It was pottery production that was done in a non-mechanized way. It was very early ancient ceramic making. And they found this piece here from the city of Susa, 4000 BC. Now, I can't read. Some of you in the audience may be able to read the significance of some of these shapes and designs on these pieces of painted pottery from the city of Susa that goes back 4000 years. But I can look at that and I can see West Africa written all over it. I can just see the city, I can just see the Empire of Benin, how they painted their houses. I can, you know, the chevron signs, the diamonds, the straight line zigzags. You know, I can see the great kingdom of Zimbabwe in here, and the chevron and the different styles that they had on top of their great palace walls. On the great walls, all the different styles of the stone. I mean, this just jumps out and says to me, African hands made this. What do you think? What do you think? You know, and this is a sort of crucial evidence, loads of this type of crucial evidence, yeah, that just disappears usually, yeah. And if there was an African face on it, you know, we wouldn't see it. Anyway, these can be found in the Louvre and in Iran's National Museum. Yeah, look at that. Let me see what you're saying about this. Because we have culture and morals, says Betty. Yeah. Right, let's go. Sister Kev said, my grandparents are from Nevis. Okay, and St. Kitts. On my mum's side, they both died before my sister, brother, and I were born. Oh, it's such a shame. Wow, wow, wow. Such a shame when we don't know our grandparents. We don't know their stories, but hopefully our parents told us the stories that their parents told them. That's why it's so important, family, that we take the time to share our stories with our children so that they can share our stories of today with their children's children. Because, you know, in 100 years' time, when they look back, you know, they're going to want to know our stories. It's important to read our stories as well. I see some messages are being retracted. Just to let you know, I'm not deleting any messages at all. It's if your message is being deleted, it's YouTube. Sister Kev says, they tried to change the name and tried to change the past. Yes, indeed. Ah, Betty, looking good while taking care of business. That's how us women drop it. We try. Mama Betty, we don't know how lucky we are to have our records that were kept from us. Yes, gosh, we still are beautiful beings as Africans. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Europeans are so jealous of our success. That's why they hide it. That's why they try and erase it. I agree. Mama Betty, would you like to have an African name? Shade to that. Someone says, Kev says, look at the detail on the garments. Yes. Ah, yes, indeed. Their feet are so clean, yes, you know, because our philosophy was back then and is to a large extent today, you know, cleanliness is next to godliness. Okay, I can see our sister Betty's getting a new name in the chat there. Yeah, in Twi, your name is Adowa because you were born on a Monday. How beautiful. Yeah, Mama Adowa. You get new name, Sister Adowa. I love that. And yes, Brother Kwame, they've been covering up the lies. Al-Kabalan says many of these things happened because many went to England during the Windrush and never returned. So there are generations who do not know their Nevisian roots. Nevis was colonized by Britain. Yes, and never forget, you know, because we were everywhere, there were Africans who were already there in Nevis. Africans who were already on the Caribbean, even prior to it being used as plantations. And remember, the Africans who were in Europe, yeah, were shipped from Europe directly to the Caribbean as well. Sister Afrojamo's in the house. Rise up, rise up. Good to have you in your house, sis. It's been a little while. Welcome from Ghana. We started over an hour ago. The clocks have gone forward in the UK. So yeah, I want to think of it. I wonder what the time is. Yeah, rise up, Sister Afrojamo. We've missed you. It's been a little while. Let me quickly press on because the time just goes so fast. So we've been talking a bit about Elam. So let's look at where it's located and you know, a bit about that city. So Elam was a major ancient civilization dating 3200 to 539 BC, centered in southwestern Iran, covering modern-day Kyrgyzstan and Elam provinces, and extending into southern Iraq as a leading power in the ancient Near East and a trade hub with Mesopotamia. Elam maintained an independent culture with a unique language until its eventual absorption into the Persian Empire, Persian and Achaemenid Empire. So hopefully from my introduction, you know, even when you're now learning about, say, Elam, that major civilization that's in the region of Iran today, you know that even prior to Elam, there were more ancient civilizations that occupied this region, and that the culture and the racial identity of the people were the same on both sides of the Red Sea, and that even prior to Elam, you had the Sumer civilization as well. So we know that this region has had many names. It's been known as the Elam civilization. It's been known as the Media, the Parthia, Persia. Sometimes they just talk about Susa because of the age of that city, you know. And in this region, there's lots of archaeological evidence of Neolithic settlements that go back 7,200 BC, and that some of these had, you know, more urbanized kind of structures. So they weren't all cities, there were urban structures as well, and they found some that go back even to 7,000 BC. So that's 9,000 years ago, yeah? And there's so much that's really significant about this area. So remember, even when it became known as Mesopotamia, yeah, there was that ancient history, those ancient civilizations that were there in existence long before it took up that name. So here we go, the civilization of Mesopotamia, around 2700 BC, was conquered by the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal in 640 BC, though it remained a significant entity until being fully absorbed by the Persian Empire under Darius I. So quite often, you know, we hear the stories of the Persian Empire under Darius I. We hear the stories of the Assyrian Empire, you know, that when it was conquered by King Ashurbanipal, you know, but quite often we don't go further back, you know, but you can go so far back as you've been hearing from the dates. So let's keep it moving, because I've got so many more slides to get through for today. 2151. Right, still in that region, archaeologists find a luxurious 4,000-year-old tomb of a teenager with gold jewellery and mysterious seals. What does that tell us? What do they tell us? Well, yeah, I was really excited when I came across this discovery. These archaeologists found this tomb, and it was a tomb of a teenager. And the teenager had all these mysterious seals that was buried with her, and this gold jewelry as well. And this was found at the Tepe Challo in northeastern Iran. And archaeologists have documented it as an ornate Bronze Age tomb belonging to a teenage girl. And they say the grave goods included jewelry, carved stone containers, and multiple seals that suggest authority and exchange. Wow. And when you consider the age of the tomb, remember, this is a 4,000-year-old tomb, yeah? And she's got rings with these seals. Usually they're like a ring, and you dip it in ink or some kind of, you know, dye, and then you would stamp it on a piece of paper, a papyrus or something. And that is basically like your signature, like you giving your authority. And so they found these seals in the tomb as well. And they've basically just called it Grave 12. And the tomb dates back to the early 2nd millennium and is the richest burial, they said, yet found at the site. Why is it the richest burial found at the site? Try and find the artifacts that they found. Try and find the jewelry. Try and find, you know, it's so difficult. Anyway, this study was led by Ali Vandati, and he was the Iranian Ministry of Culture and Heritage and Tourism at the time. And in Bonj Nord, it was uncovered with his colleagues. And basically, they collaborated together with the Iranian and Europeans scholars, and basically just the site reshaped how they mapped the Bronze Age in Iran. Objects from the grave span gold rings and earrings, 2 ivory pins. Now we know these pins are used, you know the way our African brothers, even until today, and our African sisters, even until today, they throw like the cloth over their shoulders, and they bunch it together on top of their shoulder, and they might put a pin in it. You know, we've been doing that for thousands of years. Look, they found these ornate, you know, ivory pins, bronze ornaments, an array of stone pieces. The group also includes finely made pottery, typical of the region's Bronze Age style. We were just looking at the Bronze Age style of some of that pottery. One chlorophyte cosmetic container bears snakes and scorpions carved in low relief, a motif seen across eastern Iran. A small seal near the neck depicts 2 feet and a circle and semicircle inside a circular frame. So all of this detail, you know, on these little containers as well. The body lay in a crouched position on the right side, hands near the face, facing southeast. Pottery vessels were set behind the back, above the head and below the feet, creating a clear, repeated pattern in this cemetery. So this was some kind of ritual, because, you know, the other graves that they uncovered in that cemetery, the 4,000-year-old cemetery, had similar layout. So these seals that they were finding, basically, they think that symbolized ownership and participation in the trade networks that was going on. And, you know, that stamp was a seal that just was engraved in objects, pressed into wet clay, they say here, to leave a mark that stands for the persons in society, the person of office, the person of that institution. And, you know, they functioned like signatures, yeah, on the containers, the storerooms, the shipments. And they said that several seals buried in one grave suggest more than family wealth. They said that that points to a participation in the handling of goods. So this young girl was just 16 years old and already, you know, had accumulated a fortune and was just signing off, you know, on trade as it was going past, and probably collecting taxes and collecting whatever they collected at that time. And so 4,000 years ago, we're learning from this too, that there was trade, that this individual was participating in that trade. So goods was being handled, goods was being moved around, property was being managed, was being assessed, was being accounted. There was an administrative process in place. Wow, wow, wow. And then these people want to turn around and say that we were primitive? Imagine the mathematics, the science, and the administrative institutions that would have been managing all of this. Yeah, there would have been checkpoints, it would have been supervised, there would be storage, it would be measured, there'd be rations, all of this happening as part of the trade. Thousands of years ago, family. And what the archaeologists show us from their findings is just the tip of the iceberg. Because on the one hand, they will say they find ABC, you read further down and you find that they uncovered so much more. And when they're saying something is giving them such a rich insight, you know that that discovery must have been huge. Yeah, because our people, we don't really do them with wealth. We're not do things small, you know? You don't know. Wow, wow, wow. So there's a lot of archaeological uncovery that's been happening in the Iran region. Archaeologists have got the Tepe Charlo site within the Bactria Margiana archaeological complex. There's a broad cultural horizon that reached from the Maghreb Delta of Kyrgyzstan, of Turkmenistan into northeast Iran. And there was a joint Iranian-Italian campaign at one point to do the reports on this cemetery. So a huge discovery. They discovered this cemetery and were uncovering all of this civilization back in 2021. Apologies for that. Skip this version. Just go away, please, getting in my presentation. So yes, family, our ancient civilization was, sorry about that, gosh, no way. Please don't ring me when I'm doing my shows. It just messes everything up. So trade moved, there was prize stones, there was prize metals, all along these corridors that they called Mesopotamia, but as we know, they were ancient, more ancient than that back in the days. And we've got the greater Khorasan civilization that emerged at the end of the 3rd millennium, that spread across oases and valleys, and that stretched into northern Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. You got the settlements along the region as well that expanded horizontally along the water, not vertically. You got the trade that was moving through these corridors. And of course, when they drop in Mesopotamia, you know, that's linked to the Greeks, isn't it? You would think that you're talking about just recent times, but no, it goes well back before the Greeks. Yeah, and there's records and archaeological finds and documents as well. Some important documents from Afghanistan that actually chronicles all of this. and talks about the vessels from Eastern Iran during the 3rd and 2nd millennium. So vast amounts of history that's linked to our Silk Road, ancestral Asian roots all over Asia, Inner Asia, South Asia, and to think that that teenager was among the elites and that she died so young before adulthood, yet, you know, had accomplished such an elite standing based on what she was buried with. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, family, just to like look over the shoulders of those archaeologists who are doing the digging in that region to ensure that you know, we get the opportunity to have our interpretation of what they found. So when I go further down into the article about this, which you can find as well, if you just Google, you know, archaeologist finds luxury, so you can find this as well. When you go further down, you'll see that in addition to the special seals and the metal containers and all of that, they found gold, carved stone, elaborate pins, and all of this, you know, signals access to materials. There's just so much. You're going to have to read it for yourself. Time is whizzing by. And they radiocarbon dated it. The grave at the Challo, they radiocarbon dated it to 2310 to 2130 BCE, 2130 BCE. You know, 4,000 years ago, we were signing off on trade. We had our pottery, we had our gold pins for our garments. We had, you know, so much going on. We were moving goods from Africa across the Middle East and all over. The mobility, you know, we were the ones who established trade. We were the ones who established business, economics, measurements, weights, mathematics, you know, all of this and also when you think about the metals and what we were trading and the pottery, just think of the science as well and the knowledge of the environment that you would need and the metals and the craftsmanship, you know, the designers and everything that goes into making all these produces. Wow, wow, wow. Oh my gosh, look at the time. Oh, I haven't even got halfway through today's presentation. I'm so sorry, but we will continue next, strong family. We will continue. The time has just run away as it always does. I hope you found today's presentation interesting. There's so much more that I have been uncovering that I'm excitedly looking forward to bringing you next strong. I thought I'd get through more of it today, but, you know, I just get drawn in and I hope I've managed to draw you in. Support the works, family. Get a copy of my book, my latest book, Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain, an Erased African History Restored. Please do support the works. Thank you for the chats and the conversation that's been going on. Ajowa, actually, Sister Shanice, which means our sister born on Monday. Mama Betty is now known as Mama Ajowa. Ajowa, Mama Ajowa, love it. Look at that. You got your African name in the chat on the Sister Shanice show. Isn't that wonderful? I don't know what day I was born in, you know. I think it was a Saturday. I'd have to go back and find out. Yes, rise up, each and every one of you. Patreon information. Yes, please do support me on Patreon. To all of my Patreon members, thank you so much. I'm not as active on Patreon as I should be, but your support is invaluable. Maybe I'll make enough money so that I can buy that book for $300, eh? Wouldn't that be awesome? Yes, probably royalty. Yes, I agree with you. They do look regal and royal. I wonder what that was on their back at the time. Yes, you see why they're covering up our history. Thank you, Brother Kwame. Says amazing presentation. So much info, Sister Karen. Thank you so much. My Patreon, you just go to Patreon, look for Sister Shanice, Sista, Shanice, and you will find me there. Thank you, Curtis. More love, more strength to each and every one of you. Thank you so, so much, each and every one of you, for tuning in. I really appreciate your support, just for watching, for sharing, for liking, you know, for being a subscriber. I don't take your participation for granted. I put a lot of work into the shows to make sure I try and bring you, you know, quality information. And I'm using the research techniques that I learned from Dr. Clyde Winters. And I hope, you know, that you will grab some of the information, take it, do your own further research, and at the same time, you know, get that sense of pride that I get for researching the works of our ancestors. Amazing. Wow, these people go on like we just step off the boat in the 1950s and 1960s, and prior to that we was just on the plantation, and we never know and never do anything prior to that. Imagine, we have such a rich history, not just in Africa, but across the ancient world. Tune in, same time next Wednesday. Remember, the clocks have gone forward, so it's British summertime now. 8 p.m. BST, 7 p.m. GMT, 3 p.m. EST. Sister Shanice out of here for now. Thank you so, so much for your love. Bye for now. See